is, given the right cards, you can beat almost anything, but
Right.
it's just, getting those draws, obviously. And we're going to go into game number 1 here. It looks like we have a Hunter Mirror, not something we see every single day. And one of the interesting techs of Chani's deck is actually that Scavenging Hyena that we see in her opening hand. One thing that's interesting, actually, is that both players are running a single 5-drop in the Tundra Rhino. But other than that, there's no 5-drops, and both players similar decks in this regard.
They're probably going to have to be relying on having, a 3-drop and a 2-drop or something like that on that turn 5. But Scavenging Hyena, I mean, I guess it makes sense. There's so many more beasts in the meta right now that having that synergy could be pretty nice here.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially because the entire deck is composed of beasts here. So
Yeah.
Chani can actually just play the Hyena right now, turn that into a 4-3. However, it's a bit weak to something just like a quick shot. So I'm going to go ahead and play the slower game, potentially get more value off this Hyena in the future. One thing to mention is that there is one Argent Squire in the entirety of PorkMyPig's deck. And there's also another Abusive Sergeant. So able to get that 1-drop on turn 1. Pretty nice for him. I'm going to go ahead and play the Kindly Grandmother now, and might we see the Scavenging Hyena right now? Kind of no other choice, really.
Yeah, like, do you want a hero power here? Probably not.
You could. It's not completely out of the question, especially because there's ways for PorkMyPig to buff the Kindly Grandmother into the Scavenging Hyena.
Sure.
Obviously, if you trade or if you go for the value trade with the Toad, it's already a 3-2 that can trade into the 4-3. And it's just difficult all around. So Chani is just going to think about it. Leok allows the Kindly Grandmother to trade in. You can also just go for really weak Unleash the Hounds, which it's reasonable as well, but I would probably take my chance with the Animal Companion.
Yeah, always a nice turn 3 play, the Animal Companion there.
Yeah, so this is all things that Chani is thinking about. Obviously, we're talking about PorkMyPig's turn, but this is why Chani is hesitating here. She's wondering what the possibilities here are for PorkMyPig. And gonna go ahead and choose to play the Scavenging Hyena, and actually going to just, take the trade here. She's gonna give away. Oh, excuse me, her own beast didn't die, so my mistake. I'm just kind of brain dead for a moment there. But yeah, so just giving away the trade, realizing that it's worse to have the Kindly Grandmother get the value trade and then have the wolf left over.
Yeah.
So tough decision here, but she ends up going for the one that's a bit more safe. Guess the Huffer?
Huffer every time.
Absolutely. Does need to trade into the Hyena, and this is probably going face, I would imagine. Yep. All right, Chani needs to pick up something right now. Does not, so this is going to be hero power, trade to the Huffer, and pass. Nothing else to do. She might bluff that she has something else, but nope, just going to go ahead. For the caster's sake, going to go ahead and play this out quickly. It's like, yeah, no, there's no bluffing here.
There's no mind games here.
If you had something to play, you would play it.
Yeah.
All right, Infested Wolf off the top here. Great job for PorkMyPig. Otherwise, it was just going to be Naked Houndmaster. And this can't be traded into with the Tundra Rhino. And this is the weakness of the Tundra Rhino. It's going to go face, and it's actually just going to die to the Houndmaster. And that's that's one of the options he has, right? He can even just go Savannah Highmane. I'd actually like to see a coin into Huge Toad, but I guess you want to save the coin for Call of the Wild.
Yeah, getting that Call of the Wild 1 turn early is such a big deal. It's so hard to deal with the 3 bodies just suddenly bursting onto the field here.
Yeah, this is a funny matchup because Hunter is a deck that if you get the early lead, you can really snowball and kill your opponent. But if you don't get the early lead, then it's the exact opposite, right? You just go to snowball in the pond because you can't really come back.
Yeah.
So when it's a Hunter versus Hunter matchup, it's just magnified. Whoever gets the early lead just wins the game. And Chani seemed to have the early advantage, but when you turn 4 pass, it just snowballs like this. And even if Chani starts throwing out kill commands to start clearing this board, you're facing down Call of the Wild. Next turn, your Call of the Wild doesn't really clear theirs because they can just go face afterwards. So looking like there's really nothing that Chani can do here, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of have to hope that your opponent doesn't have Call of the Wild in hand.
Yeah, so assuming you don't have Call of the Wild, right? It's just you're just tracking. You have to double kill command the minions on the board. I guess what Chani's thinking is, okay, so if she kill commands the Infested Wolf, there is 12 and 14 damage on board with the hero power. If PorkMyPig has 0 damage, she can maybe go kill command face and then Highmane to the face, and then just put the opponent down to 12 life, and maybe she picks something. It's one of these situations where she's so far behind that maybe she just needs to go for the desperation race.
Yeah, it might actually be her best chance.
Well, Eagerhorn Bow is the pickup. She can't physically facing 5 damage because she'll die. So she can't do that into the Wolf. Does get the Huffer, which is nice. And just going to go face here. We do know that's the end of the game, though. We were just doing hypotheticals.
Right, yeah.
We were just doing hypotheticals, but we do know that's the... oh, no, she actually just traded. Okay, so is this the end? Hold on. 5, 7, 12, and then +4, 16. I think he's 1 off, if I did my math correctly. Maybe not. 12, 16, yeah. So 16 damage, but there's no way you die here. It's going to trade anyway, though. I suppose you don't really... there's no way your opponent can recover the board anyway.
Right. Just might as well play it super safe here.
Yep. All right, 7 damage to the face. Chani can call the wild and trade into the Misha, but then she's dead on board.
Right.
So, yeah, this is going to be game number 1 going to Pork. Just kind of showing that she has that card. Or, excuse me, she's not dead on board, but yeah, it would be very hard for Chani to come back from this. Oh, but she is dead to Lindley Sands.
Yeah.
PorkMyPig just making sure 2 + 2 is 4, and 9 + 2 is more than 10. Math here on Hearthstone SCA. Twitch.tv/Hearthstone SCA, aka math class.
I didn't know that more than 10 was an option as an answer.
Anything more than the amount of damage that your opponent has life left, it's going to get it done.
True. Very true.
So that's game number 1 over to Pork, and that means that he has a Druid and a Warrior left, as you can see on the screen right there. Thank you, production. And yeah, Chani still needs to win with her Hunter, Druid, and Paladin, so certainly a tough position for her.
Yeah.
Because once you lose that mirror matchup, it can really snowball.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the decks left, Druid and Warrior, and considering that Chani's running Hunter, Druid, and Paladin herself, like, do you think any of these decks from Chani are gonna have an advantage, or is it just gonna be the standard stick to the deck you already played?
Right. I think that she can definitely go for a Hunter again. It's not really too much of an underdog against either the, I believe this is Dragon Warrior. Yeah, it's Dragon Warrior. And the Druid, which is basically just a normal token Druid. So it's reasonable against both. You can just go for that again. The Druid is also reasonable as well, depending on what your thoughts are on Druid versus the Dragon Warrior. She does have the token Druid as well, although it's a bit of a different build. We'll get into that if we do see that.
Yeah.
And it's an Azoth Paladin. So Azoth Paladin is reasonable against both of those decks as well. It's kind of just a bunch of really close matchups here. It really comes down to the play. So I think that's part of the reason why Chani brought these decks. There's really not the worst matchups kind of across the field.
I mean, we've seen people do really well with the Azoth Paladin deck in the past. Like, I believe it was DreamHack Valencia.
Yep, Evangelion.
Yeah, he just tore through that open bracket, and then maybe Chani...
He was like 10-0 or something like that.
Yeah,
right?
it was ridiculous with that deck, and nobody was expecting that deck to even to come up in that tournament. Like, it wasn't really in the meta very much.
Right.
People kind of even avoiding that deck, and...
It's a meta call, the Azoth Paladin,
right.
Because it's kind of like the again, going back to the pre-standard priest, where you can really catch people off guard. If you're expecting decks that are weak to it, then you can go ahead and bring it. But if your opponents are expecting you to bring it, they can bring the counter, and all of a sudden you're in a bit of trouble.
Yeah.
All right, well, Chani seems to like mirrors. She went for... she could have just, guaranteed not gone another mirror, but she's going to go ahead and queue up her Druid here. And now that we have this matchup, we can tell you the differences.
Yeah, she's not actually running any Arcane Giants, right? Yeah,
no Arcane Giants. Instead, she's replaced them with Druid of the Claw, which is nice against a bit more aggressive decks. It can be reasonable in this matchup, too. You're not faced with that situation where you're stuck with an Arcane Giant, but there's no huge swing turns later in the game. So we'll see how that works out for here. Another change is that she has 1 Myra Keeper, 1 Raven Idol. And as for the side of Pork, he basically has as standards as you can get these days with Cenarius, Nixia Yogg, and the your standard Arcane Giants.
Oof. I mean, both players here getting at least 1 Innervate each, so it's looking pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. The issue is how you kind of manage this. And on the side of Chani, she has essentially 3 pieces of ramp, so she needs to pick up some clunky cards essentially. And it's weird to say it that way, right? You don't really want clunky cards because it's clunky is a bad word, right?
Yeah.
But you want something to fill out your curve essentially, while something to ramp into. She picks up a lot of cheaper cards, not going to be looking good for her.
Yeah, Pork on the other hand, has the option to innervate into Force of Nature here, getting those 2/2s wouldn't be too bad at all. But looks like with that draw on the Emperor Thorstein, she's gonna. I mean, he's gonna.
Yeah,
choose to throw that one out.
Yeah, you could have gone for the Force of Nature, but play one more coin so you can get 4 coins into your hand, essentially.
Yeah.
And the nice thing about Emperor Thorstein is that, you know, even on top of the discounts that you get into your hand, you can also get tempo just by having it on the board. It seems very strange to say because he's a 6-mana 5/5. He's obviously understated for his cost and for, you know, pretty obvious reasons. But now Chani can't do anything. She has to kill the Thorstein. She can't develop any of her own minions. And so he kind of gets, wow. Okay, I had to stop in my tracks there. That's a Murloc Knight. In any case, so you have to stop everything you're doing and kill that card unless you're willing to give your opponent basically 4 more coins. And so apart from all the discounts he's already given you, he gives you even more of, you know, a tempo swing just by having a minion on the board that you have to kill.
Yeah, pulling your opponent off their game plan is just such a big advantage. You know, like if you're always playing reactively, it's pretty hard to kind of impose your own game plan over your opponents. Just not a way to win a game.
Yeah, absolutely. And PorkMyPig, he's getting closer and closer to getting the Arcane Giant. Could we see double Innervate Swipe here? It wouldn't be that preposterous, actually.
I mean, considering what he would have left in his hand, it's not too bad.
And Drake is kind of the same thing as Thorstein in a way, right? Druid has such powerful spells to combo with the Drake that you'd be putting your opponent in the same position that you were last turn, essentially saying, you need to kill my Drake before you do anything yourself.
Even the same with Fandral, actually.
Yeah, like well, Fandral is the number one. Fandral, you can do some insane things, you know. I would say Fandrel's number 1, and then depending on how many cards they have in hand, you know, Drake and Thorstein are pretty close to tied there.
Yeah.
But PorkMyPig says, you know what, no big deal. I'm just going to go ahead and play my Wrath for 1, which means he can go ahead and innervate Arcane Giant. Seems pretty good math there by PorkMyPig. Already had that in mind. I suppose he was sitting on that turn for a while, waiting for Chani to play her turn. So he's like, all right, play some minions. Give me something to remove so I can play my Arcane Giant.
Yeah, and the mulch was already pulled out by that Emperor, so
yeah, absolutely.
The answers are very limited here.
And this is the issue, right? If from the beginning of the game, if PorkMyPig could extend the game past the first few turns where Druid Claw maybe provided a tempo swing for Chani, if he could just not be in that much trouble, then the Arcane Giants really start pulling a lot of weight because you don't run more than 1 mulch in the deck. There's just no room.
Yeah.
And this is just going to be a joke. And Chani, you can see in her face, she's like, really? You got a Murloc Knight? PorkMyPig is fail fishing. Well, it's still a threat, right? You still have to kill the Murloc Knight, but then you still have to kill the Arcane Giant. So I don't think, you know, as much as he's fail fishing here, I don't think he's, I think he's in a really good spot still.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, you can't even kill the Murloc Knight. You have to kill the Arcane Giant, 'cause that's 8 damage to face every single turn. But the Pain Train rolls on. There's even the Power of the Wild here to buff up the Murloc Knight potentially to trade in. It's just kind of all sorts of trouble. Raven Out is the pickup. Could go for actually a minion if he picks up a 2-drop. But let's see what he does decide to do. Well, we can't really see. And actually, we don't know if he went for minion or spell. Either is pretty reasonable. He does go for the swipe here. And you can just Hero Power instead. Yep.
There you go. Let's see what kind of Murloc the Murloc Knight spawns this
he
time.
gives the nod of approval. It's like, okay, a 2/3. Not anything crazy, but, you know, just for a Hero Power, you pick up a 1.5 drop, essentially. And Chani is a bit under the gun here, doesn't really know what to do. I think Cenarius is probably the strongest to get the most power out on the board. After that, you can go Vile Teacher. Typically, you want to just get the tempo first and then draw cards. If you draw cards first, you're really, you know, forced to overreact to what your opponent's doing. Well, the good news for Chani, even though we're going to have Hero Power into probably double Power of the Wild for 3 drops, that's not too bad. You can get a 3/5 Vile Fin Inquisitor. But the good news for Chani is that there's no, you know, yaw craziness yet here from PorkMyPig. He has Cenarius, but he's behind on mana than, you know, if you're Chani. So you can go ahead and maybe clear some stuff off before this starts getting out of control. Oh, goes for the Panther first. Interesting.
Okay. Decides to go wide more than tall here.
Right, yeah. The 5/6 Murloc Knight's already going to be targeted anyway. So I suppose this makes sense. It's hard for it to Chani to deal with here, and there's the Druid of the Claw. I figure she probably has enough spells to have already played an Arcane Drench, so that decision is not working out too great for her. Does pick up the Ancient of War though, and putting up Taunt after Taunt after Taunt could allow her to get back into this game.
Great way to buy some time here for herself. Maybe get that Yogg in play eventually.
The funny thing is that if that was a different card off of Mulch, then Chani would have been, even if it was something threatening like a 6-drop or something, there wouldn't be these 2 Murlocs on the board that you'd have to deal with. Actually, Chani's thinking about going for Violet Teacher or Living Roots here. Either is pretty viable. She's not really worried about Yogg quite yet. And yeah, it's certainly reasonable to think about that, especially because, obviously, there's no combo anymore. There's nothing crazy that's going to kill you.
And there we go. Just goes Druid of the Claw Taunt, but put a body between the minions and Cenarius.
Gets a bit punished here though, because now the 6/5 Panther's going to trade pretty nicely into that. Going to get the Inquisitor, who is actually going to value trade with Cenarius. You don't see that every day.
You don't see any Murlocs really value trading with Cenarius every day.
That's a pretty good draw, though. So now he can go for Wrath for 1, Living Roots, and onto the Panther, obviously killing off the Valfin Inquisitor. Go for the Ancient of War, and that puts a nice blocker. It does die to the board, but you're leaving behind a 5/3, essentially. And, really that's all you have to deal with from there on going forward. So looks like that is going to be the play for her.
Yeah, Chani really needs to buy some more time here. It's just the pressure's really piling on. Although Pork doesn't have that many more minions. Although draws Onyxia. Oh.
Wow. Well, if he does pick up removal here, it's a really big deal because he might be able to get some damage to face, save part of his scenario, so it's harder to die. That is not it. Looks like he's gonna Wrath for 1. It looks like he can't Wrath for 3 and get a better trade. So
no.
Looks like he's just going to draw here. It makes sense. You might as well see what your next card is, especially because Yogg and Onyxia can't be played with Wrath, so he's going to see what his future options are. There is a Drake.
Okay.
Yeah, that works out pretty well for him. So more threats on the table.
And obviously gets to draw that card.
And he picks up a Violet Teacher as well, so Chani's certainly under the gun. She doesn't know that if she plays Onyxia, she's not going to die. Neither are her whelps going to be cleared, at least as we can see from PorkMyPig's side, Yogg shenanigans notwithstanding. But it's hard to make that call. It's very tempting to just put a blocker up and Druid of the Claw, but that is your last taunt. Sometimes you want to make the power play first before you put up a taunt as a last result, because from now on she doesn't really have any blockers except for the last Ancient of War.
We've only seen one swipe from Pork, right? Like he got one from the Raven Idol, so he's used 2, but he's still got 1 left.
Right.
So I guess.
PorkMyPig really has seen already 1 Ancient of War. He knows there's an Onyxia. He knows there's a Yogg. So he could really just push damage to face here, get his opponent down to 4 if he goes Violet Teacher, Mulch, and Hero Power, and make it difficult for the opponent, especially with no board. And looks like he's just going to go for that. Feels like, Yogg's too risky. Onyxia, he can just do that after his board gets cleared by Yogg. And yeah, just going to put maximum pressure on. I imagine this is all going face.
Yeah.
Chani certainly is going to do the trading for you. That's a high main. That would be really nice if she wasn't about to die.
Right.
All right, so can Chani stay alive is the question. Right now, she can't.
Yeah, she needs to draw Yogg, I suppose.
You can draw into more stuff, and she kind of just has to.
Yeah.
As PorkMyPig, you feel pretty good about this. You're like, okay, you're spending 5 mana just to draw into answers. There's a swipe, so that's useful. Okay. That's also useful. Yeah. So I think she's still alive. Just looking at the trades here for a moment, she can go ahead and
she can survive.
Swipe the Drake, slime into the Cenarius and Living Roots, the Violet Teacher. That's a clear board, but your board is also clear, and your opponent has Onyxia and Yogg. So good news, bad news here for Chani. You're alive.
Yeah, and seeing this final swipe come out of Chani as well, Pork is going to feel very comfortable playing that Onyxia.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, she doesn't have good trades here at all. She just has to trade everything in and play Living Roots.
barely holding on, just hoping your opponent doesn't have the final blows.
You hope your opponent has Living Roots and Wrath, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the daughter of Deathwing. And she might actually just have no way to come back from this. Oh, never mind.
Here we go.
That's the only play here.
All or nothing right now.
Off the top. I want to see Pork's reaction to this, actually.
Yeah. He's like, yep.
He gives it not. He gives it not, even though it's off the top. Karakazam is not going to help. It actually gives. That's really bad because it gives more targets for removal. Conceal's reasonable if you can clear your opponent's board. The big thing. Oh, if Marketable goes on her own minion.
Oh.
No. Yeah, that's going to make it a bit harder. Oh, that's nice, though.
Not bad.
So now she can get Execute potentially here.
Yeah.
And Earthshock, well, could on your own minion probably.
Yeah.
And Mark of the Wild, again, well, this would be very nice on the kettle here, or the teapot, but that's not going to provide any sort of taunting. She needs to actually somehow not to unstealth her. Unstealth her broom there. Blood Warrior is not going to help. Bear Trap is not going to help. Snake Trap. Yep, she's just dead if PorkMyPig goes face. Actually, if he Hero Powers face first, then he's not going to. Yeah, he's not going to have lethal because he's going to Hero Power face first.
Oh, no, wait, but her board's full, right?
Oh, right. She has.
Yeah.
Oh, feels bad, man.
Yeah,
Full board, can't get the bear.
Pretty bad. Oh, he thinks it's freezing trap.
You still kind of have to do it, and you can just play your own Yogg.
Right? Yeah.
There is an argument though because Savage Roar kills you. Your opponent doesn't run Savage Roar, and he knows that, but you can get it off Raven Idol, so he's a bit concerned. Doesn't really want to give up a 7-10 taunt, you know.
Yeah.
So he might actually pass here, and it would give Chani a way to come back, especially because she has a 4/4 taunt. This wouldn't be insane for him to pass here because he could just die if it's a freezing trap.
Right. Oh man.
So the mind games are real.
This is the power of secrets out of Yogg.
Oh, but he gets an Arcane Giant, and that's just more stuff for Chani to deal with. But he's not going to attack, so Chani is actually going to stay alive, at least for now. And yeah, not going to even play the Vile Teacher first. She's just saying, I need answers right now. I might need all the mana I can get.
Is there anything she can draw here that's going to help her out?
That's somewhat helpful.
Yeah.
Let's see if she goes for 2 or for 3 or for 1. Let's see. So she has 6, 10, 15 damage on board. So she might just want to go. I mean, and there's 18 health on her opponent's side. She might just want to go for 3 here and just play something like a Thorson. I think you 3 onto the Giant because you can just trade everything to the Onyxia, not have it die. Actually, no, you can't. Actually, oh wow, the gang up. Yeah, she actually just has to trade everything in. And she can't trade it in her broom. I mean, I suppose she could if she just wants to provide the illusion that it's still freezing or something.
Oh yeah.
But and PorkMyPig doesn't have Druid of the Claw, so he can't actually charge in. He might have to just take the risk this time that it's freezing.
Swipe face.
Or swipe face. Sorry, my bad.
He wanted to see what it was.
Sorry, I got a little tunnel vision there. I was thinking about, how he's going to get out of this, but yeah.
Happens all the time now.
All right, there you go. That's going to be win for PorkMyPig. Chani put up a good fight, but just going to be win here for PorkMyPig. Going to be up 2-0.
Yeah, great little lead here set up for himself. Now Chani has to claw her way back. 3 wins in a row without losing any. So that's a pretty tall order for anybody.
Well, she is going to be going up against the Warrior, which is a Dragon Warrior, one of the best decks in the game. So going to be difficult. We did see actually at the Onog Championships, a bit of a spoiler alert for you, but we had Frozen come back from being 3 games down and winning against the Dragon Warrior. But at that event, Chalky was running the Bookworm rather than the Draconid Crusher, which players these days have kind of identified as being not as good, especially when you're trying to kill your opponent. And so yeah, and that mistake has not been made. Well, mistake, quote unquote. Maybe some players kind of like it. It's kind of like a line of play thing, right?
Yeah.
But most players would say they'd rather have Dragon
so
Crusher.
It's so easy to get seduced by like those new cards, which have
Right.
synergy with already existing deck archetypes, and you're like, you know what, this has to be good. Like you're just kind of hoping
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
good, and then get reverse sweep. That must feel like.
Yeah, but unfortunately for Chani, PorkMyPig has put in the Dragon Crushers, and it is it's a standard, I'm going to kill your face deck.
Yeah.
It tops out at Rag, it tops out at Grom, and there's nothing like Deathwing, there's nothing like Onyxia. It's all just tempo all day. So yeah, we're looking forward to the next game. I wonder what Chani is actually going to pick here. Obviously, you could pick any one of these decks, really. None of them are that much more favored or less favored than the other one against Dragon Warrior, so could be anything. And maybe she just wants to play some Paladin.
Yeah, I kind of want to see the Paladin, see all her decks, except for the banned one, of course.
Yeah, the Paladin is a N'Zoth Paladin, kind of a little bit of a greedy one in a sense, because the only taunt death rattle is Tyrion. There's nothing like the Infested Tauren, which I do like, actually. You're playing it just in case you play N'Zoth at the end. You need some sort of taunt in the way.
Yeah.
But then you're just playing a 4-mana 2/3, then you feel bad about yourself. So I do like the exclusion of that card.
Do you think it's worth playing Chilma in these kinds of decks just so you have that extra taunt? Like even without the Dragon synergy?
It's almost the same thing as playing Infested Tauren, because now you're playing a 7-mana 6/6. So.
Ah, okay, yeah.
All right, instead of the Paladin, it's going to be the Druid coming back here for Chani. Again, no Arcane Giants. Instead, she has a Druid of the Claws, which works pretty well against... it looks a bit better against Dragon Warrior than it did in the last matchup.
Both guys really taking their time here.
Yeah, Chani, you typically want to keep... Or you just want to mulligan for as much ramp as possible, especially because she has one Mire Keeper, so she's not going to be, picking up more than one piece of ramp is not going to, bother her at all, because she's not going to draw more ramp after that, essentially.
Yeah.
And she's thinking about the Living Roots, which can be pretty useful, but you can't use them against Fairy Dragons, unfortunately, which is kind of the bane of Druid against Dragon Warrior.
Right.
And also, Pork is actually running 2 Ravaging Ghouls. Recently, we've seen a change from 2 to 1 in order to fit in some of the new cards there. So a bit of a risk of keeping the Living Roots, but you do want to have something to deal with those Fairy Dragons. And for PorkMyPig, threw away actually his Frothing Berserker. And just going to go ahead and go face with the Alex Strauss's champion. This is kind of bluffing the Ravaging Ghoul, and Chani's already shaking her head, saying, please don't.
Right. Feels nice, though, to have Wrath against that Alex Strauss's champion. It just feels so bad when that minion gets like 2-3 swings in.
Right, and you're just...
Yeah, you're just
oh
there.
My goodness, Ravaging Ghoul off the top. Oh, wow. That can't feel good at all. And Chani is thinking, do I really coin into... Like, in this situation, Hero Power passing feels horrible, but also coining into Violet Teacher and having no play for the next 3 turns is also horrible. So.
Yeah.
She drew basically all of her late game. Other than Yogg, she's drawn literally the most expensive cards in her entire deck in her hand.
Sometimes it's just how the cookie crumbles, It's just the nature of a card game.
Oh, we found Yogg. You know when I said except for Yogg? We found the Yogg. Literally every single, the most expensive cards. If you go and look at her deck and scroll down to the bottom, it's going to read Yogg, Cenarius, Onyxia, Ancient War, Ancient War. Well, depending on what language you're in, sometimes the alphabetical order is different.
Right.
Anyway, it's unfortunate, to say the least.
Yeah. On the other side, Pork is just, comfortably just
Innervate?
playing on curve.
Ooh, Innervate would have been a massive draw there. He could have Innervate War into Coin War. And the funny thing is, this looks like a good draw for her, but literally anything her deck could have been played there.
Yeah, right.
So it's not like oh, she picked up Drake, right? Every single card in her deck was playable there.
Well, I guess it depends on how you look at it. It's like glass half full, glass half empty.
The way I look at it is she's getting a lot of damage hit in her face. The way I look at it, Malfurion is getting pretty beaten up and bruised right now.
Yeah, that really hurts.
So PorkMyPig is looking at the situation. He saw Hero Power on turn 3 into a Violet Teacher, which meant that she didn't coin it, and she just picked up the Drake off the top and insta-played it. So PorkMyPig is saying, I probably need this execute. I could I could tempo execute here, but probably not my best interest. And so yeah, he's gonna take it out, I believe, with what is he gonna take us out with? Nothing. Just gonna go face. Okay, sure.
Okay. Yeah, looks like he's confident that he can just.
Yeah, he's saying that even if you clear, you have to clear my board and put up a taunt, and even then, it's basically impossible. He's expecting this Ancient War, and he's already smiling. He's saying, you know, doesn't matter. I have the execute in hand, and I'm just gonna kill you. Just go to face, and this Drake doesn't matter how much spell damage you have, because I'm just gonna kill you. Puts up the well played, and Chani is going to be very sad about this because PorkMyPig is moving on to the round of 32 with the dominant 3-0 victory. Unfortunately for Chani, she moves down to the lower bracket.
Yeah, a little unfortunate there for our only female player.